The Nutcracker, retold from the original by E. Hoffmann. Once upon a time there lived a brother and sister called Marie and Fritz. One Christmas Eve, when the snow was falling heavily outside, they were allowed to open one Christmas present each. Marie's present was a beautiful nutcracker in the shape of a soldier. Uncle Rudolph had bought the nutcracker for Marie. He always gave her a very special present for Christmas. "What a handsome soldier you are," said Marie, and he was indeed handsome, with his dark moustache that curled up at the ends and his smart white uniform with gold trim. "You shall live on the top shelf with all my favorite toys." But as she lifted the doll to put him out of harm's way, Fritz snatched him out of her hands. "What a stupid present," he said. "He's not even a proper soldier." "Please don't hurt him," begged Marie, bursting into tears. Fritz ignored her plea. He shook the nutcracker so hard that some of its teeth fell out. "Ha ha ha! You won't be able to use this now," he said. And then Fritz danced around the room, holding the nutcracker high above his head. "Catch me if you can," he shouted. But every time Marie tried to grab him, Fritz leapt across the room. Marie made one desperate leap towards Fritz, but the wicked boy hurled the wooden nutcracker across the room. It landed underneath the Christmas tree, so Marie went to pick it up. Gently she lifted the soldier nutcracker. He didn't look very handsome now, with his front teeth missing. "Look at his broken arm," she cried. Her father carefully mended the nutcracker's arm. Then Marie sat him on the top shelf with her other dolls. "Sweet dreams, little nutcracker," said Marie before she went to bed. That night, when everyone in the house was asleep, Marie crept downstairs to see if the nutcracker was all right. She had been worrying about him. But what a sight met her eyes when she opened the sitting-room door. "I must be dreaming," she said. A few inches away stood an army of mice, their bright little eyes sparkling like diamonds against black velvet. The little creatures squeaked and scampered about all over the place. They looked as if they were all set to go to battle. Suddenly the Mouse King stepped forward. He was wearing a little golden crown, and he squeaked louder than the rest of the mice. His army gathered round him, and when he said, "Charge!" they started marching towards the Christmas tree. "No, please keep away from the Christmas tree," cried Marie. "Don't spoil the presents." But the mice kept on marching straight for it. As the mice edged closer and closer to the tree, Marie heard another battle cry, "Charge!" The nutcracker soldier had leapt off the shelf and was leading the toy soldiers into battle against the mice. He was brandishing a long silver sword. "Get back, all of you, or I'll chop off your heads," he cried. His sword swished through the air as he spoke. "Ooh, isn't he brave?" whispered the china doll. "Hurrah for the nutcracker!" cried Marie. Then the Mouse King stepped forward. "I am the king of the mice, and you can't frighten me," he squeaked. Still the army of mice kept on marching towards him. The little army seemed to be growing by the minute. The nutcracker knew he could deal with a few mice, but not a whole army. In desperation he called the rest of the toys, and they all jumped down from the shelves. "We'll help you," they all cried. Soon the floor was littered with dolls, all keen to help in the battle against the mice. The mice may have been small, but they were certainly crafty. In no time they brought most of the toys down, by tripping them up with their long, thin tails, or by leaping at them with their sharp claws. "If I could catch the Mouse King, then the battle would be over," thought the nutcracker when he saw most of the soldiers lying on the floor around him. But the Mouse King wasn't easy to catch. He kept scampering through the nutcracker's legs. Every time the nutcracker tried to chop off the Mouse King's head, he scurried out of the way. Then Marie saw the Mouse King trip the nutcracker up with his tail. As he fell, the Mouse King pounced on him, so Marie threw her shoe and knocked the Mouse King out. "That's finished you," she cried. But in all this commotion, Marie fell over, hurt her arm, and fainted. When Marie woke up, it was the middle of the night. She was having an awful nightmare. She was dreaming that the King Mouse was chopping off the nutcracker's head. She shouted out, "My little nutcracker! Where's my little nutcracker?" Her family and her Uncle Rudolph came rushing to her room. "It's all right, my dear," he said. "You were just having a nightmare." "Yes, everything's all right," said Uncle Rudolph. "Look, I've brought your nutcracker friend to see you. He's even back to his old handsome self again, because I've given him back his teeth. Look at his dashing smile. "But I loved him just as he was," said Marie. "Well, I suppose you won't want to hear my story about him then," said Uncle Rudolph as he started to leave the room. "Don't go," said Marie. "Tell me the story of the little Nutcracker. You're such a good storyteller." So her favorite uncle began to tell the story. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there lived a very grand royal family. The queen was a kind queen, and on one day of the year, the king's birthday, she always prepared a special banquet for him. On the day of the banquet, continued Uncle Rudolph, the queen went to the royal kitchens and started to prepare the king's favorite dinner. His favorite meal was, I must admit, a rather strange choice. It was lard and sausages. The queen was just about to put the lard into a saucepan with the sausages, when she heard a tiny little voice coming from a corner of the kitchen. "Do go on, Uncle Rudolph," said Marie impatiently. "Hush," said Uncle Rudolph. "I'll forget where I am. If you keep quiet, you will hear the little voice." Then Uncle Rudolph pretended to be the Queen Mouse. "Queen, Queen, I'm your friend. I'm the Queen of the Mice," he said. "I want to take part in your banquet. Please give me a cube of lard. My husband loves it." So then, continued Uncle Rudolph, the Queen gave the mouse a piece of lard. After this, a whole army of mice came out of all the nooks and crannies in the kitchen and took the rest of the lard. The poor old king had to eat sausages without any lard at all, and the queen was so angry that she banished the mice from the kingdom. "You'll regret this, but your baby daughter will regret it more," said the Mouse King, as he skulked out of the kitchen for the last time. The queen rushed to her baby daughter's crib, and when she looked at her, she leapt back in horror. Uncle Rudolph told Marie. The King Mouse had changed her beautiful little daughter into an ugly creature. "Ooh, how terrible! Do go on, Uncle," said Marie. Well, the grief-stricken queen called all the wisest men in the kingdom together and asked them all to study their magic books very carefully. The poor queen was desperate for them to find a way of breaking the Mouse King's spell. It took many months of searching through hundreds of books before a wise old magician found the page that said, "How to break a spell that's been cast by a Mouse King." The clever magician who found this page read it out to his colleague. "A golden nut tree must be found, and one of its nuts must be picked," he said. "Then you must find a boy who has never shaved or worn boots, and he must crack open the nut and give it to the poor princess. As soon as she eats it, the Mouse King's spell will be broken." So, continued Uncle Rudolph, the wise men searched, the queen searched, everybody in the kingdom searched, but the nut tree was not easy to find. It was only after many years of searching that the wise men found a golden nut tree in the kingdom of Nuremberg. In this strange faraway land lived an old shoemaker, and the nut tree was growing in his garden. In fact, he didn't know what all the fuss was about when the wise men came to look at it. "It's been there for years," he said. Then he told them that years ago a shower of nuts fell from its branches, and all were cracked except one. The old shoemaker had kept this nut as a keepsake. "Hurrah, hurrah! They found the nut!" cried Marie. "Shh! Do let me continue," said Uncle Rudolph. So he went on with the story. "But remember, my dear, they still had to find the young man who had never worn boots or shaved. High and low they searched for the young man, and just as they were about to give up, they remembered the shoemaker had a son. He was the boy they were after," said Uncle Rudolph. So all the magicians went straight back to the shoemaker's cottage. The son followed the magicians and his father back to the princess's palace, and they introduced him to the king. "Welcome, my boy," said the king. "You are our only hope of saving the princess." The whole court was keen to get the princess back to normal again, so the magicians told the boy to crack the nut immediately. With a single blow of the hand, he cracked the nut in two. Straight away he gave the broken nut to the princess, and she turned into a beautiful girl. The Mouse King was furious when he found out that the boy had broken the spell, so he turned him into a wooden nutcracker that looked just like a prince. The Nutcracker prince fell in love with the princess and asked her to marry him. But the princess then declared that she couldn't possibly marry a nutcracker, continued Uncle Rudolph. "Oh, the poor boy," said Marie. "He saved the princess, and then she says she's not interested in a simple nutcracker." "Yes, it's very sad," said Uncle Rudolph. "But I am pleased that you have the nutcracker now. I know you will treat him kindly." Now, Marie, the story is over, and you must go to sleep, for tomorrow is Christmas Day, and there are many presents left to open." "Good night, Uncle Rudolph. Good night, Father," said Marie. Then she put the Nutcracker beside her bed. "There, you poor thing, I would have married you," she said, and she stroked his head. But as Marie was just drifting off to sleep, the Nutcracker came to life, and before her eyes he started to turn into a handsome prince. "You've broken the spell," he said. "As a reward, I would like to take you to the land of sweets." Then the prince whisked Marie out of her bedroom and onto a golden sleigh that was waiting outside. The sleigh seemed to fly through the air. When they reached the land of sweets, the sugar-plum fairy and delicate flowers and instruments danced and played. "I wish this night could last forever," said Marie. "Sadly, we must go now," said the prince. So Marie waved goodbye to everyone in the land of sweets. "Oh, what a lovely dream," said Marie when she woke up the next morning. But when she rubbed her eyes, she realized it hadn't been a dream. The prince was kneeling down in front of her. "Will you marry me?" he asked. The prince smiled. "Yes," said Marie. "The land of sweets will always be our secret." And when the wedding ceremony took place, they were delighted to see a little sugar-plum fairy on top of the cake. Perhaps somebody did know their secret after all. The end.